Hi, I'm Fraser T Smith, and I'm delighted to be showing you guys around my studio here in the country to check out some of the gear that I use on a daily basis, working with some great artists like Dave, Kae Tempest, Snow Patrol, and my own project, Future Utopia. So I spent most of my life in London, so I had different studios bouncing around, but also working in Sweden and LA and New York, and every time I'd go to the studio, I was like, wow, this is really cool. This is a great thing, and I would just note down things that I really liked. So we were looking to sort of expand what we had in London, and it became not really practical, to have like the kind of space that we wanted. And this place came up. Some friends of ours were selling this house that we knew, so we knew the house. And the thought process was that we just really wanted to create this artistic community here that where artists could come down and my engineers and musicians could come down and just feel like this is a really cool place to be. There's a big gate here, so when you come in, you can almost feel like you're coming into this world. People used to talk about Rick Rubin's place, like Shangri-La, and in terms of you'd go there and you'd feel like you're in this like self-contained space, which I think is great. I felt very free and felt like really that you could connect on a very deep level. We have a residential facility here so artists can stay, but it's also we're only an hour out of London, so you can commute, and certain artists, to either stay or have a hybrid approach. The barn here is incredible because I'd always lusted after a studio with natural light, having been in windowless voids for many years. I think it's really important to sort of understand the time of day. It helps with circadian rhythms. I was actually talking to an incredible architect and designer called Thomas Heatherwick, who's done some of the most incredible, you call them installations, but they're obviously way bigger than that. But he's done studies on people's stress levels when either looking at nature or in his case really looking at Victorian houses that had so much detail and newer buildings that are very, very minimalist. And his findings are that on the newer buildings, the stress levels go up because there's not enough to keep people's brains active. So it was interesting, the complexity of nature actually really calms you down. Every window that you look through here, you can see nature, which is just, it's a great view, but I think deeper than that is something really calming about it, which enables you just to get to like the core of what you're trying to get to, I think, in terms of the music making and record making process. I'm an album loving producer, so the idea was that artists can come down and really like figure out the body of work here, which is what I've done with Surge from Kasabian and Snow Patrol and Kae Tempest, and my own work. Definitely feels like it's a place to create bodies of work. And yeah, like aesthetically, I wanted this to feel like the coolest kind of living room that you could ever go to, and that feels very approachable and just feels very warm, but also everything works and everything's switched on so that you can mix records here, but you can also have a great time and feel like very relaxed and fluid in the creative process. I thought at the beginning that because it's a barn that we could potentially divide it into two halves with the glass halfway, and then I thought actually the way that I work is way more stream of consciousness. So it's not like we'd be like, okay, now let's go into the live room and record. We're just recording from the very, very beginning of the process. And so having all these different areas that can set off like the songwriting process, whether it's grabbing a guitar, jumping on the upright or the grand, or the whirly, or the boucle, or the mellotron. Like there's so many different. I wanted the the studio to feel limitless in terms of genre and sort of application, so that there were no drawbacks, and that's, I think, what we've achieved. Everything's tracked through the preamps or this desk that I designed with Eric Valentine, this UTA desk, which is now not making these anymore. But this is more like a sidecar desk, so it doesn't have preamps on it, but has the incredible undertone audio EQ and sums into a Valve master bus. So we use that coming in, so everything is from all these different areas around the studio comes into the desk, and then into Ableton, Logic, Pro Tools. I usually mix in Pro Tools, but then we use a lot of the UTA preamps we've got here, but also in terms of mixing, the UTA on Fairchild, the Obsidian compressor, Avalon AD2055, SSL, Fusion. So the stuff comes in like quite coloured, which is great, because then you have to do less. The less, I love using plugins, but the less I can use just correctively, then the better. So you've got a really good sound in. Then mixing wise, yeah, we use loads of hardware inserts. So I just love the sound of that. The kind of records that I love, there's quite a large degree of hardware on those, and so I think I can tell the difference. If people can't, I mean, there's definitely an argument. All sorts of arguments are, it's ultimately going down to MP3. But I think for me, then it needs to be as good as possible at source, so that when it is translated down to those formats, then it survives. And I'm really into non-linearity, in terms of sonics, and I think that's what analog is. It's non-linear, and I think that AI is linear and digital is linear. So we've got to, in my world anyway, I've got to add as much non-linearity as possible. So this area is, I call it production area. So we've got another rig here which has a shared drive and is shared to the main rig, which is over there. And so we've got pieces of outboard, not a crazy amount, but we've got the UTA preamps, and I've usually got more synths here, but just have like the synths plumbed in so it didn't get too crowded over this area, and we have a distinctly different area. Same monitors, the Barefoot Micromains, so you've got a consistency of sound. I have been starting ideas on the MPC 4000 for many, many years, and I love what the new Akai's can do. But there's something about the simplicity of the older machines, and you come back to what you know a lot of the time. So that for me is the MPC 4000. I've got two of those, and can sample into it, sequence from it. Obviously, loads of drum samples in there as well. Sequence the Voyager and the Mellotron. Here, I usually have a memory Moog, which is being fixed at the minute. Just getting some TLC from my tech. In the meantime, I've got my deck set up here because I've got some DJing gigs over the summer. So I love DJing, but also I've got some vinyl that I'm sampling into, called Chaos Pad, which I use. Big Sky reverb, which I always like synths to go through some kind of effects. We've got the Eventide Space over here for the Mellotron, which sounds really cool. Yeah, MPC goes through a loop trotter, monster compressor down here, and transient designer, so it's tracked pretty hot as well through this Revox, little Revox mixer. So most things in these sort of satellite areas are tracked through quite a lot of outboards, so that by the time they get into the main rig, they have a lot of coloration on them. That just means that there's less to do than to bring the mix home. So we've got a load of guitar amps here and a Buchla Command, which are in no way tied or related, apart from the fact that you make music through them. But the amps, so we've got 4 amps here, the Marshall, Messer, Rectifier, the Matchless, and then a Fender Super here, that are all fed into a Universal Audio aux. I love this piece of equipment because it means that we can hear, you get the sound of the amps, obviously, you get the valves, you get the tones, but it means that we haven't got huge sounding cabs in a room where often you're looking to control the volume and there's a lot going on. So we get those tones from these incredible amps while still being able to switch really quickly using this KHE switcher. So just on this foot pedal or on the front, you can literally have all 4 amps turned up really loud, so you're getting the tone that you want, not hearing that level in the controller, the level that you want, but also being able to switch from amp to amp at literally instantaneously, so you can be playing a part through all the effects on one amp and then just quickly see what it's like to hear that through the Matchless or the Marshall or whatever. And that to me is really important to keep the flow going of a session. Obviously there's many different ways to skin a cat, and you can spend a week like miking up guitar amps and using different mics, but I think for me anyway, there's so many different variables in that it's more important to get like really great sounds very quickly and then be able to switch between them. And this setup, which we used extensively on the Snow Patrol album, just worked really, really well for all the guitars and Nath's, Gary's and Johnny's rigs, primarily going through these amps, which worked really, really well. So got quite a few pedals. I'm a guitar player through and through, so love guitars. This Tom Anderson I actually bought after I started working with Serge, my good mate from Kasabian, who very kindly said, would I like to play with the band at Nebworth? And this Alchemist Euphoria guitar, which we made, it's basically a Tom Anderson that customized with the graphics from that album, was the guitar I used on stage with them, which was a mind-blowing experience. So I love the Tom Anderson guitars. So yeah, a few pedals, and then I've just been getting into some modular sounds and have been loving this Buchla 208 Buchla Command. Use this over here with Ableton, record into it. I send MIDI out from Ableton into this. I don't know if that's cheating. Probably a lot of people will say it is. But instruments are there to be used in different ways. So, but also use the onboard sequencer and pulsar, playing things into Ableton, and that's given me like this new lease of life in terms of synthesis, and can definitely understand how modular synthesis becomes a major addiction to a lot of people. So come back in a couple of years and you'll probably see this huge wall of modular stuff, because yeah, it's very addictive. We're in the live area now of my studio, and I'm set up with my live rig, Future Utopia live rig, because we're rehearsing for our summer festivals. We're playing Latitude and Walk in the Park festivals, a bunch of other gigs through the summer. So I like to just be set up so I can play with the sequences, which are on Ableton over here, just through a monitor speaker, and just get used to how things are going to be live. So I've got my 2 vocal mics. I've got my trusty Roland SH-101, going through a Roland Space Echo, which I do a lot of stuff with during the gigs, and then a Korg Op6, which has got some great sounds on it. Guitars, I use this beautiful little Django's High, Mustang, short scale Fender Mustang, which I love. So this is my main guitar that I play live with. And I don't use an amp on stage. I go into a Universal Audio Woodrow, which is the main tone and speaker cabinet, speaker simulator. And then I've got a Holy Grail reverb. I've got a compressor down here, a phase shifter, full tone, full drive, and a El Capistan Strymon tape delay. So it's a pretty good sound, kind of retro-y sounding. Full drive's really great for the lead tones as well. We've got a lot of guitars on the wall up here. I've got a Gibson Hummingbird, which I love, Takamine, nylon strung guitar, SGs. This is interesting. I'm a massive Steve Vai fan, and I thought it would be cool to have an old Charvel, which is his sort of flexible era, very early, like first Dave Lee Roth album guitar, sort of recreated. So yeah, I've got the Floyd Rose and I've got Seymour Duncan's on this, and sort of battered old Charvel, which I think is really, really cool. Then I've got another Future Utopia guitar up here, Jazzmaster, which I just love. This painted guitar company, guys over there just take these guitars and paint them using the artwork from the albums, which I think are really cool. And then we've got the pianos over here too. Oh, another MPC. So when I'm not rehearsing and I'm songwriting and producing, I've got another MPC, obviously for drum sounds, sequence the Juno 106 into it, or whatever synth I've got there, or synths. And this goes through this really cool old Glenn Sound, who used to make stuff for the BBC, so it's still got like BBC code on it. This old 70s Glenn Sound mixer, which I got off eBay a few months ago. Again, like super vibey in terms of the sound, adds a lot of colour, which is exactly what I want. So we don't have to use too much stuff in the box. It sounds really good. I've got a Big Sky reverb pedal that the Juno goes through. And then these two incredible pianos. I was going to say distant cousins. They're not even related, apart from the fact they're both pianos. But this is my first ever piano. I bought the Yamaha Upright. It's not that like expensive a piano. It's not like anything vintage. I just bought it for like 1,200 quid, which at the time was a lot of money. But I mean, in terms of uprights, I guess that's not a huge amount. But just sounds like super bright and really like the attack on it sounds great. I used it on t-shirt Weather in the Manor by Kano. I sampled it, put it into the MPC, used it in a slightly different way, used it on Black with Dave, just been using it on all the new Snow Patrol stuff across their album, The Forest is the Path, and the guys really love it. And then I was very lucky to become acquainted with a lovely man called Paul Leverett and his wonderful father, who just unfortunately passed away, but was an absolute titan of pianos in that he used to bring over pianos and install pianos at Abbey Road, and has worked with the Beatles and worked with all these incredible artists over the 60s and 70s, and then formed a company called Piano Restorations, who are still very much doing their thing. Is a small family-based business, and they take pianos that are in need of attention, such as this Steinway, which, if I showed you the pictures of it when it was first received, I mean, it was in dire need of repair, and they lovingly bring these pianos back up to where, like, the former glory. So this is a 1903 Steinway, and it's been literally every part of it has been lovingly polished, tuned, some bits replaced, and it really feels like a centerpiece in the studio, which artists love to come and play on. It's very different from the sound of the upright in that it's almost the complete opposite, in that very mellow, very rich, very warm, and yeah, it's been used on a bunch of records. The new Kae Tempest record that I've just been working on with Kae, the Snow Patrol stuff, some of the Dave tracks. Yeah, artists love it, and coming in to play on a Steinway is, yeah, I feel incredibly grateful to have this amazing instrument in the studio.